Instant noodles. They're a staple in pantries around the world, a go-to meal for busy professionals, students, and anyone looking for a quick and tasty bite. But have you ever wondered how these convenient packets of noodles are made? Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the fascinating world of instant noodle production. Welcome to the Noodle Master Factory, where millions of instant noodle packets are produced every day. We're about to take you on a journey from raw ingredients to the finished product you find on your store shelves. So, let's dive in and discover the secrets behind this global phenomenon. Chapter 1: A Brief History. Before we step into the factory, let's take a quick trip down memory lane. Instant noodles were invented in Japan in 1958 by Momofuku Ando. Ando was driven by a desire to create a convenient and tasty food solution in post-war Japan. His creation, chicken ramen, became an instant hit and laid the foundation for a global food revolution. Since then, instant noodles have evolved and diversified, with countless flavors and varieties available today. From cup noodles to gourmet instant ramen, the industry has come a long way. But at its core, the basic process of making instant noodles remains similar to Ando's original method. Now, let's fast forward to the present day and see how modern factories have scaled up this process to meet the enormous global demand for instant noodles. Chapter 2: Raw Ingredients. Every great product starts with quality ingredients, and instant noodles are no exception. Let's take a look at the key components that go into making our favorite quick meal. Wheat flour. The main ingredient in most instant noodles is wheat flour. It provides the structure and texture we all know and love. Water. Simple yet crucial. Water helps bind the ingredients together. Salt, a flavor enhancer and preservative. Kansui. This alkaline mineral water gives the noodles their distinctive yellow color and chewy texture. Vegetable oil. Used in the frying process to dehydrate the noodles quickly. Seasoning. Mix, a blend of spices, vegetables, and flavor enhancers that give each variety its unique taste. Some manufacturers also add additional ingredients like eggs, vegetables, or specialty flours to create different varieties of instant noodles. Now that we know what goes into our noodles, let's see how these ingredients come together in the factory. Chapter 3: Dough Preparation. First, the wheat flour is carefully measured and poured into enormous industrial mixers. These aren't your average kitchen mixers. They're gigantic machines capable of handling hundreds of kilograms of flour at a time. Next, water is added to the flour. The amount of water is precisely controlled, as it affects the texture and quality of the final product. Too much water and the noodles become soggy. Too little, and they'll be too brittle. Salt and kansui are then introduced to the mix. Remember, kansui is that special alkaline water we mentioned earlier. It's responsible for giving the noodles their signature springy texture and yellowish hue. Watch as the giant paddles of the mixer begin to turn, blending all the ingredients together. This process usually takes about 15 or 20 minutes, depending on the batch size. The goal is to create a smooth, consistent dough that will form the base of our noodles. Once the mixing is complete, the dough is ready for the next exciting stage of its journey. Chapter 4: Dough Sheeting. Now that we have our dough, it's time to give it shape. This process is called sheeting, and it's where our blob of dough starts to look more like the noodles we know and love. The mixed dough is transferred to a series of rollers. These rollers press and flatten the dough, gradually reducing its thickness. It's like rolling out pizza dough, but on an industrial scale. Look closely as the dough passes through the first set of rollers. It's still quite thick at this point, but as it moves through subsequent rollers, you can see it getting thinner and thinner. This process is repeated several times until the dough reaches the desired thickness, usually just a few millimeters. The sheeting process not only thins out the dough, but also helps develop the gluten network. This gives the noodles their characteristic chewy texture. As the sheet of dough emerges from the final roller, it's now ready to be transformed into individual noodle strands. But how do we go from a flat sheet to those curly noodles in your bowl? Let's find out in the next step. Chapter 5. Noodle Cutting. This is where our sheet of dough truly becomes noodles. Welcome to the cutting stage. The thin sheet of dough we created in the previous step now enters a fascinating machine called a noodle cutter. This device is equipped with a series of sharp rotating blades that will slice our dough sheet into a familiar noodle shape. Watch carefully as the sheet passes through the cutter. In the blink of an eye, those rotating blades transform the flat dough into hundreds of thin, uniform noodle strands. It's mesmerizing to watch. The width of the noodles can be adjusted by changing the spacing between the blades. This allows manufacturers to produce different types of noodles, from thin vermicelli style to wider udon-like noodles. But wait, there's more. Have you ever wondered why instant noodles often have that distinctive wavy or curly shape? Well, right after cutting, the noodles pass through another set of rollers that imprint that iconic wavy pattern. This isn't just for looks. The waves help the noodles cook more evenly and make them easier to eat with chopsticks or a fork. As our newly cut noodles exit the machine, they're ready for the next crucial step in their journey to becoming instant noodles. Let's move on to see what happens next. Chapter 6. Steaming. Fresh out of the cutting machine, our noodles are about to take a steam bath. This might sound like a spa treatment, but it's actually a crucial step in the instant noodle making process. The cut noodles are conveyed into a large steaming chamber. This isn't your average kitchen steamer. It's an industrial-sized unit capable of processing thousands of servings of noodles at once. As the noodles enter the steamer, they're enveloped in hot steam. The temperature inside is carefully controlled, usually around 100 degrees. The noodles spend about 1 to 5 minutes in this steamy environment. But why steam the noodles? Well, this process serves several important purposes. It gelatinizes the starches in the flour, which is essential for the texture of the final product. It helps to set the curly shape of the noodles. It partially cooks the noodles, reducing the time needed for consumers to prepare them later. It kills any microorganisms, improving the safety and shelf life of the product. As the noodles exit the steamer, they're now partially cooked and have that characteristic springy texture we all love. But we're not done yet. The next step is what truly makes these noodles instant. Let's move on to see what happens next. Chapter 7. Frying. We've reached one of the most crucial stages in the instant noodle making process, frying. This step is what gives instant noodles their long shelf life and quick cooking time. After steaming, the noodles are immediately transported to large industrial-sized fryers. These aren't your typical kitchen fryers. They're massive vats filled with vegetable oil, heated to temperatures between 140 and 160 degrees, 284, 3, and 20 degrees. Watch as the steamed noodles are carefully dropped into the hot oil. The process happens quickly, with the noodles spending only about 1 to 2 minutes in the fryer. But a lot happens in that short time. The intense heat causes the water in the noodles to rapidly evaporate, creating thousands of tiny holes throughout the noodle structure. This dehydrates the noodles, reducing their moisture content from about 30–50% down to just 2–5%. These microscopic holes serve two important purposes. They allow the noodles to be rehydrated quickly when hot water is added during preparation. They create a barrier that prevents moisture from entering the noodles, giving them a long shelf life. The frying process also adds flavor to the noodles and gives them that slightly oily texture we associate with instant noodles. Some health-conscious brands use air drying instead of frying, but the frying method remains the most common due to its efficiency and the familiar taste it produces. As our noodles emerge from the fryer, they're now fully cooked, dehydrated, and almost ready for packaging. But we're not quite finished yet. Let's see what happens next. Chapter 8. Cooling and Quality Control. Fresh out of the fryer, our noodles are piping hot and need to cool down before they can be packaged. This cooling process is more important than you might think. The fried noodles are spread out on a long conveyor belt that moves slowly through a cooling chamber. Cool air is circulated around the noodles, bringing their temperature down gradually. This controlled cooling is crucial because it prevents condensation, which could reintroduce moisture and compromise the noodles' long shelf life. As the noodles cool, you can see them harden into the familiar brittle texture we associate with uncooked instant noodles. This process usually takes about 30 minutes to an hour, depending on the facility. But cooling isn't the only thing happening at this stage. This is also where rigorous quality control measures come into play. Teams of trained professionals and advanced automated systems carefully inspect the cooled noodles. They're checking for several things: proper shape and size, correct color, absence of any foreign particles, proper moisture content, structural integrity, no broken or crumbled noodles. Any batches that don't meet the strict quality standards are removed from the production line. This ensures that only the best noodles make it to your bowl. With cooling and quality control complete, our noodles are almost ready for packaging. But there's one more crucial component we need to add. Can you guess what it is? That's right, the flavoring. Let's see how that's prepared. Chapter 9. Seasoning Preparation. While our noodles have been on their journey from dough to dried noodles, another important process has been happening in parallel: the creation of those flavorful seasoning packets that give instant noodles their delicious taste. The seasoning mix is a carefully guarded secret for most instant noodle manufacturers. It's what sets different brands and flavors apart. But generally, these mixes contain a combination of salt, sugar, flavor enhancers like monosodium glutamate, MSG, dehydrated vegetables, and various spices and herbs. Watch as precise amounts of each ingredient are measured and combined in large mixing machines. The goal is to create a consistent flavor profile that consumers can rely on every time they open a packet. For powdered seasonings, the mixed ingredients are then dried and ground into a fine powder. For liquid seasonings, like those found in some premium instant noodle brands, the process involves creating concentrated flavor syrups. Many instant noodle packages also include separate oil or sauce packets. These are usually filled with flavored oils or concentrated sauces that add an extra punch of flavor to the final dish. Once the seasoning mix is prepared, it's portioned into small packets by high-speed filling machines. These machines can fill thousands of packets per hour, ensuring there's a seasoning packet ready for every serving of noodles. With our noodles cooled and our seasoning prepared, we're ready for the final step: packaging. Let's see how it all comes together. Chapter 10. Packaging. We've reached the final stage of our instant noodle journey: packaging. This is where all the components we've created come together to form the finished product you see on the store shelves. The packaging process is a marvel of modern automation. High-speed machines work in perfect synchronization to assemble each packet of instant noodles. First, the dried noodle blocks are carefully placed into the familiar plastic or paper packaging. Watch how quickly and precisely the machines handle each noodle block. Next, the seasoning packet we prepared earlier is added to each package. Some varieties might include multiple seasoning packets or additional components like dried vegetables or meat-flavored oils. Once all components are in place, the package is sealed. Most instant noodle packages are sealed with heat to ensure they're airtight. This seal is crucial for maintaining freshness and preventing moisture from getting in, which could spoil the noodles. After sealing, the individual packages are grouped and packed into larger boxes for shipping. These boxes are then stacked on pallets, ready to be sent to distributors and retailers around the world. But the journey doesn't end here. Before leaving the factory, each batch of noodles goes through one final quality check. Chapter 11: Final Quality Control and Storage. Quality control is an ongoing process throughout instant noodle production, but there's one final check before the products leave the factory. Random samples from each batch are selected for testing. These tests include weight checks to ensure each package contains the correct amount of noodles and seasoning, seal integrity tests to confirm the packaging is properly sealed, taste tests where trained tasters prepare and eat the noodles to ensure they meet flavor standards, lab tests to check for any potential contaminants and verify nutritional content. Once a batch passes all these tests, it's cleared for distribution. The boxed noodles are moved to large warehouses like this one. Here, they're stored in climate-controlled conditions to maintain their quality until they're shipped out to stores. The instant noodles can typically stay in these warehouses for several months without any loss of quality, thanks to their low moisture content and sealed packaging. This long shelf life is one of the key advantages of instant noodles, making them an excellent emergency food supply and allowing for efficient distribution across long distances. Chapter 12: From Factory to Your Bowl. From the warehouse, our instant noodles embark on the final leg of their journey. They're loaded onto trucks and transported to distribution centers and stores all around the country, and sometimes around the world. Next time you're in a grocery store, take a moment to look at the instant noodle aisle. Each one of those packets has gone through the complex process we've explored today. But the real magic happens when you take them home. In just a few minutes, with the addition of hot water, these dried noodles transform back into a steaming, flavorful meal.